Motion, congratulations on the film. What does it mean to have Akilla's Escape, this film, premiere at TIFF?
Oh, it means so much. It's, first of all, just getting the film in the can, getting it wrapped, doing all, everybody coming together to do the work, and then to have it manifest in Toronto, in our city, at TIFF, to be on the screen for the first time, especially in these times, and having a chance to have a public event, though so socially distancing, being here in the city is really important, and a great start for the film.
I'm happy about that too. Charles, tell me a little bit about what inspired this story. It was something to do with the drug deal gone wrong, right?
Yeah, it's something around that, but I'm a fan of genre and crime noir, and want to put our people in that story. But at the core of it, I'm really looking at the idea of generational trauma and how that is cycled through Black boys, their fathers. This is a father-son story. This is an origin and a reckoning story that is told through this one character who's had a past, who grew up in a certain way, and then now faces, a situation after this heist gone wrong. When he captures this young boy, what he's going to do with him. So I'm really talking about our role as men, the experience that we accumulate, and really looking at with the essential question I was asking was, what is the cost for Black boys to escape this cycle of generational trauma, and why does it cost so much all the time?
Motion, what made you want to get involved in this film?
Well, I guess a big thing is having the chance to once again work with Charles Officer, as just an amazing creative, and I love collaborating with him. Also to tell a Toronto story, to tell a story that is both our story, it's a global story because it takes place or is based here in Toronto, but it also looks at the experience of Black people, Black young men, Black families, not only here in the city, but in New York and Jamaica, which is basically connecting to the diaspora in general, the ways that systems affect also families, affect personal, affect our own emotional growth and trauma and healing. And so everything about the themes was very important for me to be a part of. So I'm really happy that I was brought in to work on this as well, invited, I should say, to work on this as well.
It's a really beautiful film. I don't want to spoil too much, but I think we should talk a little bit about it and about the characters. So Charles, let's start with the main character, Akilla, the sort of stoic heart of the story. He's played by Saul Williams, American actor, rapper, and poet. Tell me a little bit about Akilla.
Akilla is, we meet him, throughout the film as a boy and a man. And while he was a boy, he was groomed into this world of a criminal organization that has his father and his grandfather has lineage that traces back to Jamaica. But when we meet Akilla as a man, he's now operating, a grow up in our now legalized system in Canada. And he was once clandestine and doing it one way, but now with this political sort of turnover, he's facing a question of self-governance and where he lies in that. So he's choosing to actually say peace out to this world, and make that sort of shift. But in other crime genre films, you see someone trying to get out to do right for other reasons, but he's getting out because he understands the political factions and he sees the way things are structured in a different way. So he's a person who's basically been seen a lot and has experienced a lot and actually understands the idea of what violence can do, but chooses not to use it, but he knows how if he has to.
I don't want to give away too much, so I'm cautious about asking this next question. So Motion, only say as much as you feel like you want to reveal without letting too much out there. But let's talk about the shepherd in the film, played by Tamela Impumluana. One of the things we talked about at the beginning, and Charles and I talked about just then, is about generational violence. Tell me a little bit about Shepard's role in this film.
Well, in many ways, Shepard represents the now and the past. He represents what we often look at as, why can't youth just do this, and not realizing how deep these situations go, that it's not as easy as, you know, throwing, you know, police and law enforcement and law and order at human beings. That not only are youth and families and people caught up in systems and being controlled by systems that have a hand in their own destruction, but also that there is an inner healing that needs to take place, that the emotions, the trauma, the PTSD that people go through when violence comes close to home. And so Tamela, aka Shepherd, he embodies that in such a deep way, with very little words and more about what he exposes through his own experience, his own want for escape, but not knowing how. And this is very representative of a lot of things that we're seeing right now as a community and as communities.
I don't want to go too much off topic here, but I couldn't help but notice that you cast Saul Williams to play Akilla. Akilla Saul Williams is a musician. He's a rapper. Like, was that intentional, Charles, in bringing someone with a musical background into this film?
Absolutely. I've known Saul for a very long time. I mean, and I've quietly been thinking about him playing this role. I really respect him as an actor, but he's never, really held the lead in a film since Slam. And the idea of who he is as a human being, and he also has a son that's similar age as Shepherd and Tamela, and I just felt like there was something about him as the man playing this role, his poetry, his understanding. This guy understands hip hop beyond other people. Like, he understands jazz. He has the diaspora within his bones, and so. And it was beautiful because, when our producer, co-producer, Jake Yanowski, when we were trying to cast the character of Prince, he's like, what about Vic Mensa? And I'm like, Vic Mensa? I would love him. And I'm like...
Again, another rapper, like so many musicians in this film.
Yeah, I really think that they're incredibly talented. We've seen it numerous times, but it turns out that Saul Williams is Vic's mentor. So when we sent the script to, and Jake grew up with Vic, because Jake is originally from Chicago. So that synergy of that kind of so he has been groomed by this kind of man. So this is kind of the kind of artist that he is in his soul. And this is the kind of environment we wanted around our film. All this to actually give young Tamela, who's this amazing Canadian generational talent, the network that he needs as he moves forward as an artist, that he can now reach out to Saul and reach out to Vic, and that expands our community beyond Canada, because our community is beyond Canada, and I think I would love our films to reflect that in our storytelling. Yeah,
it's such a poetic film in so many ways. And Motion, I thought of you a couple of times while I was watching it, because I was wondering if you brought that. I mean, you're a great poet and a great musician yourself. Like, did that influence the way you helped write this film?
I believe poetry is part of how we speak and how we talk and how we move. The poetry of the visuals, as well as the poetry of thinking about the voice of Akilla, right? Of his voice and how he is, the things he says and the things that he doesn't say. So I feel definitely that being a poet, being a MC, and thinking about the musicality of the voices and the musicality of their movements was part of what was interesting to me, and it very much, very, very much.
And that's what I love about Motion, is that that's why I love Motion's work from the theater and her poetry. And I used to listen to Motion on the radio when I was at OCAT. Like, you know what I mean, before I met her. So there was this flow of her voice and the way, and her language, and that poetry was important for me to, I think, in a film that is dealing with violence, crime, especially dealing with Black people, right? And we wrote this film was done before this whole crazy time right now as well. So we that's, Motion is poetry.
It's done before. It is how do I put this? It is both very, very sad and very, very true that even though you wrote this film before this particular moment, that it is still incredibly relevant to this moment.
Mm-hmm. It is. And, this trauma that we're seeing and this idea of, and it also influenced the way that, we're capturing and presenting. We're very conscious. We've talked a lot about that between DP, Maya Bankovic, who's, her female eye needed to be on this as well. Like, the lens of violence through women's eyes is different than men. And that translates also. So it's a combination of all this where we are in this time right now where we've seen, like our social acceptance of violence and these images that we can see Black bodies being abused over and over and over. And it takes this extreme sensibility to see it that, wow, really look at what we're dealing with in this community from a very young age, is that this trauma has been perpetuated and imposed upon. And there's a real political force behind all of this, and to really recognize that, to identify it so you can, and, we're getting calls to defund the police, which is, a form of that was initiated out of slave patrolling. You know what I mean? Like, so these elements are all weaved into our society. That is also, again, like we're seeing Bill Blair, who's now, who's taking over this mantle around legalization. But, how many people has he been, touched in terms of contributing to incarcerating and changing the course of their lives, and we're talking about a healing plant, so let's go to the origins of things and really kind of look at the way that our society is affecting us as Black people is really critical.
But before we go, I want to make sure I get to this, that the film is slated to be part of Planet Africa, and in some ways it is inspired by Planet Africa, which is part of TIFF that showcases films from Africa and the African diaspora. Charles, tell me a little bit about Planet Africa and what it meant for you as a filmmaker.
Yeah, I would say, like, it's crazy. 20 years ago to this day, I went to my first film festival with my first short film in 2000. And at that festival, I was also, you're given a pass, and, I was in a Clements Virgo's film, Love Come Down. So I had this place where I was open to this Planet Africa program, and I got to look through this catalog, and it really opened me up to the breadth of films that actually existed that I'd never been exposed to, that speaks to my culture, my lineage, like so much more, so it feels very, again, poetic in a certain way to come back in 2020 in this time, because at that time, like, that it also reflects this idea of where there was a program that was created to really curate specific types of films, and that program was necessary. Then it disappeared. Right. And these things keep disappearing because we're like, we need to be integrated. And now it's coming back for the celebration, where I think is very, very important. And maybe I hope that it just kind of doesn't stay for this year.
Yeah. It is it's beautiful to hear you talk about it. Motion, we got about 30 seconds left before we get kicked off the air here, but I do want to give you the last word here. People leave the theater, people leave the drive-in, people go back into the kitchen to get more popcorn. If there's one conversation you hope that two people who watch this film together have with one another on the way in, what do you hope it is?
Healing, what we can do to heal and to uprise our communities, and understanding and love how we're going to do that through our art, through our creativity, through our people, to continue to use art to resist. So it's a lot of things, but those are the key for me.
And those are the conversations, those are the conversations I think you'll be having coming out of this thing. I can't say enough about the film. As I said to you before we went on the air, I was texting my friends yesterday saying, I won't say what I actually said, but I said, I can't believe how good this is. Like, I can't believe, I love every single moment of this film. As two sort of friends of Q, congratulations on it, and take care of yourselves, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Each time, it means a lot to us. Thank you.